What up, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. On this channel, we talk about crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and today I want to talk about automating your Patreon campaign. And specifically, what does that mean? How do you do that? And some of the thoughts that I have when it comes to that. So if you're out there trying to monetize your passion using Patreon, you don't want to invest tons and tons of time into this, I think you're gonna really like today's YouTube video. So let's talk about this. How do you actually, have an autopilot system when it comes to your Patreon page? So I'm gonna be walking through my thought process as it kind of adheres to this, some of the things you need to go through when it comes to this, and also getting just a clearer sense of how to operationalize something like a Patreon campaign. So let's kind of go through this in different sections, but if you haven't ever come across my channel before, my name is Salvador Briggman. Love talking about crowdfunding. I've been in the industry since 2012. Patreon is one of the most incredible subscription-based crowdfunding websites out there. That's one of the early movers in this space. I admire them a lot when it comes to the functionality that they built into that platform. And I really want to help this for those of you out there that are artists, creative types, you're putting out something really that you love, podcasters, etc. How do you actually earn more money as a Patreon creator, but also how do you automate this to a degree? So the first thing that you can do is really just to begin to take inventory, first of all, of what goes into the Patreon process. So if you've never done this before, if you're a newbie to business owning, or a newbie to marketing, if you're a very beginner when it comes to creating things online, you're just starting to make some money when it comes to your work online, this is gonna be a very new experience for you. However, once you understand what I'm about to talk about, it's gonna radically change your life, it's gonna radically change what you think is possible, and it's also gonna kind of make you think about your work in a little bit of a different way. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to take inventory, okay, of the different responsibilities that you have. So you might have a sheet of paper and you just kind of draw a line down. On one side you would say responsibilities, and the other side you would just have roles. What are some of the roles that you're playing within your Patreon community? For example, that could be producing content, that could be scheduling content, so you're a content scheduler, maybe as your role, maybe you're a graphical artist of some kind, making stuff that you're producing on Patreon. What are some of the roles that you're playing when it comes to this Patreon community, as well as what are some of the responsibilities that you have? So responsibilities could be things like, oh, my duties are to make sure I have a post go out every single week or every single month. My duties are to remember to promote this campaign, right? My duties are to remember to talk about this with my inside community and maybe to be on a live stream of some sort. You want to write down some of the high-level roles that you feel like you play within this community, and also what are the responsibilities and or duties that you have related to this community. Now, this is something where you're going to be thinking about this, like maybe at a coffee shop, or maybe you're at home, right? You're thinking about this. You're watching maybe me on the way to work, or hopefully you're not driving or something like that, right? Maybe you're just doing your dishes or something like that. You're listening to me, but the most important thing is that you don't just do this one time. You really want to kind of study your behavior over the course of a week. Over the course of a week, you're going to start to just write down. I know it's going to be so annoying. It's so tedious. I know, right? Man, but this is what you're going to want to do, and it's so boring. But you want to just write down, when it comes to Patreon or over the course of a month, what are the exact things that you're doing? What is taking up your time? How are you, this individual, this creator, actually putting inputs into this community in order to make the thing fly, in order to make this continue to have content coming out, continue to have people joining this community, continue to have people enjoy the experience of being a part of the community. Really write down on a week-by-week basis or a month basis or even a daily basis what it is that you're doing to make this community start, thrive, have people joining, customer service, all the things that you're doing. Really try to get it down on the page. Once you've done this, you should have a massive list, right, of all the different roles and responsibilities which you have. And you should be able to look at that and almost be like, okay, if I could take all of this off the table, I literally would not have a job, right? I literally would not be having to do anything when it comes to this community. There's nothing that's not written down. It's all written down to the T in this document. When you feel like you've gotten to that point in time where like literally everything that's required, and maybe people would need logins to be able to help with all this stuff, but everything is down in the document, that's where I want you to go to this next step. So this next step is to begin to take a highlighter, right? And we can actually just highlight the things that you feel like are not really adding very much value at all to the community, or that you are doing but someone else could really easily do on a team, right? What are some of the things that you could easily highlight that you feel like other people could do, or it just doesn't take your necessarily special, there's nothing special about you being able to actually do this role. Begin to highlight that, begin to kind of write that down and identify some of those different roles and tasks which you are performing. In addition, you want to write down the things that, based on functionality functionality, which we describe either on my tutorials that I put out on Patreon or my book. You can go and check out Patreon Profits, right? These different things, based on the actual functionality of Patreon, what can actually you're underutilizing that can maybe use to accommodate some of these things that you're already doing. So for example, let's just say that you're continually having to remember to post content, and that's something that's occupying a lot of your mental space. Well, what are two ways you could begin to automate that? Number one, you could create a content calendar, right? A content calendar where it has all of the content that's going to be going out for the next month or the next 2 months or even the next quarter, right? And to write that down so that everyone on your team can actually see that. And that might just be you, right, when you're getting started. Next, you need to actually schedule that content using the Patreon schedule feature to be able to make sure that that comes out at a certain point in time. So this way, you could spend a lot of your time maybe creating some of this content, schedule it out, and have it go out based on this content calendar so that you are no longer involved. And all of a sudden, you've kind of washed your hands of this for the next 2 months. And you can spend all that free time how you would like. And to a certain degree, the Patreon community, when it comes to that particular function, role, responsibility, task, duty that you have, is beginning to become more automated. So the first thing I said was identify what could maybe be farmed out to other people and that you can get help with. Number two would be the things that based on Patreon's functionality that maybe you just haven't learned enough yet about the actual platform that you could use in order to power this community much better, whether that's welcome messages, scheduled messages, etc., or even other things. Like maybe, I don't know, you're trying to offer physical goods and they have a merchandise section right on Patreon that you can easily sync up to. Think a little bit about this and how you can automate the Patreon a little bit using the actual functionality that is available. The next thing that I would like you to do is actually not what many of you might think, which would be like the marketing side, but actually what I'd like you to do is to begin to think about what are you spending attention on. So go down your list, right? The things you're responsible for, the roles that you have, and likely one of them is kind of quality control, right? What are some of the checks that you go through mentally to be like, okay, this is going out then, okay, we're maybe commenting on some of these different posts, we're doing this, we're doing that, maybe once a month I'm looking at this, right? Really begin to think about the things that you're doing on a repetitious or on a repeated basis, okay? And these are things that are kind of usually like, almost like you can think of as like a checklist item in your head, right? And that's exactly what I'd like you to do. So to begin to take some of the responsibilities that you have or tasks that you're performing on a more regular basis and to begin to create a checklist. So, maybe turn over your document, if you're using Excel or whatever, turn it over and begin to write a checklist of monthly, these are the things that I need to make sure I'm doing. Number one, content is going out, right? Number two, every time a content goes out, maybe we're answering a couple of different comments that are on that actual content. Number three, I'm also taking screenshots of people that are saying incredible things in the Patreon community that I can use for marketing, that I can remember for testimonials, etc. Write down almost as a checklist the different things that you're doing on an ongoing basis, and that's going to begin to help you move into operationalizing this, because that way you can make sure that these checks are being performed by you or by other people, and you no longer are going to have to strain your head to also remember this as you get one step closer to automation when it comes to your Patreon campaign. So a great system is going to have a couple of different things. One is, like we were talking about, actually operationalizing the community itself. What you're doing to actually produce content, the service that you're providing, right? The product that you are providing to people. The first is to get very clear about the things that are involved with that, like we discussed, right? The second is kind of gathering of the positive reviews, gathering of the responses, addressing kind of negative complaints, sort of the customer service side of the equation, if you will. And the more that you can actually identify what it is that you need to do there, whether that's, for example, gathering customer reviews, making sure that's done on a monthly basis as a checklist item that has to be performed every single month, is going to begin to actually automate this overall system. But there is a third component, and this is literally required if you want to make sure that you can fully automate your Patreon campaign, and that's what I want to talk about now. The third component is marketing, aka traffic generation. So it would be amazing if you could just have this insular community and all you're doing was putting out content, all you're doing is making sure people were happy, right? And that was it. And that's a very stagnant career. And you'll know, if you're a follower of this channel, man, if you know me, Salvador Briggman, right? If you know the stuff I put out, I'm not about stagnation. I'm always about growth. I'm always about success. I'm about pushing through those obstacles and barriers so we can serve people at a much higher level, right? And you can also demand more of ourselves. We can reach that unlimited potential that I believe that we all have, to really tap out that potential and realize that full potential which you have as a creative type or as an individual or as a creator, right? So the next part of the equation is that in order to be growing your community over time, you need to also do the same task when it comes to how people are joining the community. Okay, so what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, let's just say that you're a podcaster, right? And your content schedule for being a podcaster is you're putting out podcasts every single week. And in those podcasts, the way that you're getting people to maybe your Patreon is that you're mentioning it in these particular episodes, right? And there's a very specific way, maybe even in which you mention it, or at certain times, which you notice drive traffic to the Patreon campaign. You want to begin to write this out. Do not keep it in your head. I know there's such a big temptation to keep this all in your head because we're all very smart people, right? Particularly if you watch this channel, you're obviously pretty smart, but you don't want to keep it in your head, okay? We want to operationalize the side of marketing. So this way, for example, you will have a list of the places where you're promoting the Patreon that actually deliver some kind of an ROI to you. That could be your core medium, that could be in social media, that could be via email marketing campaigns, etc. Once you've done that, you can begin to work backwards with this operational process which I'm talking about, which is, for example, with email marketing, you can create an email marketing content calendar. And you can get them all written ahead of time, have them all go out over the next 3 months, and they're scheduled automatically. Same thing with social media. Let's just say that you're posting different interesting stuff on social media, and there's a certain kind of cadence or category to that, and there's a calendar which you can create. You can then have that go out automatically, either by using a social media tool like Buffer or Hootsuite, or by having someone on your team that's just responsible for social media, right? Or for making sure that things are responded to, etc. You can begin to schedule that out once you operationalize it, right? In addition, all these other different tools that you're using, whether it comes to promotion or marketing, you can make sure that that stays consistent, that whatever you're doing to promote and market your Patreon, that it's happening on an ongoing basis and developing a system of checklists and controls and to ensure that even when it is automated, that you're still having some kind of quality control over the process to make sure that it's happening regardless of whether or not you are doing it on an individual basis every single day. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description. So I know what you might be thinking. This is a lot of work, Sal. This is so much work, Sal. Why are you even talking about this, right? I'd rather just continue on with my Patreon campaign as I'm doing it. I just want to be the one to run the show. I don't care. I'll just spend the time doing it, right? Okay, you can do that, and that's fine. And it's obviously up to you when it comes to your creation. But I'd really like to just illustrate the larger vision here. It takes a lot of work to set up a factory, right? It takes a lot of work to think about all the little machines that you have to build, the square footage of the factory, where you're gonna put this thing, how you're gonna get the raw inputs, get all the boxes, right? For example, you need to ship out things, or the raw inputs of your, manufacturing phones or stuff like that. You gotta get all the things that make that together and figure out that every step of the way, right? But once you figure out the system, man, literally you can get this raw input of material, go into the factory, and you get the product that's coming out, shipping to people worldwide, and you build $1 billion company out of a system like that. So while it does take time and effort to really think about designing the system, writing it down, putting together a checklist, right? Identifying the things you're doing, tasks, roles, etc. Why it takes time to set up a system like this. Once you do set it up, it's literally one of the best investments that you can make of your time as a creative type. And in addition, if you do this, it's also one of the best investments when it comes to your life and being able to earn money from your passion on a recurring basis by only lifting a couple of fingers if you want to. It is great, and you spend more time as a creator. So I urge you, if this is something that you are serious about, number one, go and check out my guide down below, Patreon Profits, because I talk way more about this and really how to operationalize and the things that go into actually just making more money and cashing in on your passion, some of the ways and tricks that you might not even be aware of, right, in order to do that. But number two, you gotta commit to this. If you're taking this seriously, you really want to begin to assess this. Am I willing to actually invest in building the system? Am I willing to invest in laying the foundation? Am I willing to invest in automating this, right? This is something that if you really put your time and energy into, if you really try and figure this out, spend your time doing this, it's going to have an incredible impact on your life as a creator, as a business owner, and that's really what you become. You move from the segment of being just a creator into being a business owner. In the same way that Jay-Z, incredible music, right? Incredible voice, right? and he has such an interesting and creative mind. But really, it's his ability when it comes to business that allowed him to skyrocket his career. And it's the same true of any artist that's out there. At a certain point in time, if you want to level up, you gotta be willing to confront that 1,000-pound gorilla, which is learning how to turn this into a real thing, learning how to turn your passion into profit. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Go and check out those guys down below. You can always book a one-on-one coaching call with me down below. I'll include a link there in the description. But again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Come subscribe if you want more content like this. Leave a comment down below if you did enjoy this content, and give me a thumbs up if you think that other people should also watch this video. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.